This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report, was the Farm Bill destined to be this hard to pass? And with corn so cheap, what does that mean for cash rents? And if you could burn wood, what wood would you burn? That and more on the Four Rivers Ag Report. The Four Rivers Ag Report is underwritten in part by
the Department of Geology-Geography is a proud sponsor of the Four Rivers Ag Report and provides integrative learning opportunities for students and the community to explore the physical and cultural world near and far.
Welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. Well, it truly may be the Christmas miracle, but the House and the Senate have agreed on a potential budget deal. And a potential budget deal means that we probably will have a farm bill not until January. On Tuesday night, the Budget Conference Committee announced that they agreed on a 2-year budget deal. And that was the major holdup for the Farm Bill Conference Committee. So there was plenty of time to dot the I's and cross the T's, right? No. The snowstorm that made NFL football so much fun to watch on Sunday pretty much shut down Washington, D.C., and the employers of the Congressional Budget Office couldn't get to work to make key cost estimates. Without these estimates, according to the Wall Street Journal, negotiators said they wouldn't be able to reach a deal with enough time to vote on the legislation before the House adjourns, which was today. So we waited 3 years so far. What's another couple of weeks, right? Well, passing the Farm Bill didn't used to be all that dramatic. It happened regularly, coming fully formed out of some smoke-filled room. But we've been waiting for the bill ever since this program started on the air. Why has it been so difficult to bridge the gap in a bill designed to give everyone a bit of something to take home to their districts? To shed some light on all this, I talked to Jonathan Kopis of the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Economics at the University of Illinois, and his article called Mapping the Fate of the Farm Bill. And introducing to the program is a young man I think we'll be talking to in the future. It's Jonathan Kopis. He's a assistant professor of law and policy at the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Economics at the University of Illinois. And Jonathan, you wrote you co-authored an interesting article called The Mapping of the Fate of the Farm Bill, where you talk about how we got to this nowhere that we're at now. How did we get here?
Well, that's a great question, and that's what really led Todd Keithy and I, who's the co-author on it. Both of us are new to the University of Illinois, and we everybody's been talking about why this has been so difficult for a farm bill to get done, and wherever you go, whoever you talk to, it's been one of those topics of conversations. And so Todd and I kind of had been sort of kicking around this idea of, well, what is it that's changed? What are struggles? And so what we started is this was the 1 year or two is the first thing we are anticipating being a series of these that kind of steps back and tries to frame up some of the dynamics around this farm bill. And obviously, the big issues that we have for this farm bill, the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, SNAP, or what used to be called food stamps, and the big fight that happened, particularly in the House of Representatives, which is carried over into how these negotiations happen with the Senate, and also the big commodity subsidy title programs and how that works out on a regional basis. So as we got to talking about this, Todd was showing me this capability of mapping, and we were looking at different regions, and so we kind of started to look at the partisan alignment across regions, and then to make sense of it, we went back to some of the farm bills in history to try to see if we could find some good benchmarks, if you will, some other times. And of course, 1996 historically was a very difficult farm bill. A lot of similar situations politically.
The farm bill has always been this one where there's been pat on the back and some arm twisting, and I'll give you this if you'll give me that, and you're right about the even between farm groups, make sure that we have crop insurance for the corn growers, but we have to have sugar support for the sugar producers. And of course, everybody else's giveaway is a bad giveaway, but you got done. What's the difference between, 96 was a difficult year, split House and White House. Yeah. But we have that now. How could we get that done in 96, but we can't get that done now?
And again, I wish we'd been able to kick over the right answer and have it come running out, for us. But I mean, you're absolutely right. A farm bill, and it's one of the things we say in the document. It's what we call an omnibus piece of legislation,
Right.
which means it isn't just one thing. It is 12, 13 titles. It's almost 1,000 pages or more. The Senate version was more than 1,000 pages. So there are a lot of things in there, which means there's a lot of things for people to dislike, and there's a lot of things for different people to like. And the way it gets done traditionally is that coalition comes together around all the things they like, and there's the trade-offs and the compromises for everybody to get, what they need, whether it's everything from rural development or research programs to the big money programs like SNAP, like conservation, like Title I, and that sort of pulls everybody together. But what we saw this year in the House was the exact opposite. Now, the Senate passed a bill last year, and they passed a bill again this year, and both times was bipartisan. Little slightly different makeup due to the ranking member change and some of the issues with members from the South. But the House went the opposite way. And instead of building the coalition, it unraveled on the House floor in June. And then they split out the nutrition program and made it very partisan and very political. And it's sort of complicated this process of getting it done more. And so part of this idea was to look at these regions and look at how this plays out. As you can see on the map, you can see really how red, so we use red for Republican, blue for Democrat, like you see on the news. And you can just see the vast rural areas are very red, and the coasts and the highly populated parts of the country are blue. And, it begs the question, is that part of the problem? Have we lost the ability to compromise because we've polarized even in where our members are from? And you hear the issues about gerrymandering and everything. So it all kind of comes to that. And that's one of the reasons we went back to 96, because actually 96, you had President Clinton, you had the House turnover, and the House became Republican majority for the first time, I think, 40 or 50
Green
years.
Ridge, yes.
Yeah. And see, there's a lot of the same kind of similar partisan, difficult politics. But you had a bipartisan farm bill vote in the House, and it was a lot of change. I mean, then Chairman Pat Roberts from Kansas, who was the ranking member in the Senate last year, was the House chairman, and he got a bill through Congress with a lot of difficulty, but it came out with a bipartisan. So we were trying to line up to see, okay, let's look at the districts across the country. And one of the things that jumped out right away is there were more blue districts throughout the South and some of the rural areas in 96 than there was this past go around. And, that leads to the question of, is that where some of our ability to compromise and build a coalition, because we don't have as many rural Democrats that can cut deals with rural Republicans because they have similar interests. And now the interests in the partisan affiliation have split and kind of gone in that alignment. Does that make it much more difficult to then come together? And again, we don't have a lot of answers to this point, but it certainly is. If we have what we hope is an interesting way to look at this discussion.
Well, I'm really looking forward to the rest of your articles on this, and hopefully we'll be talking about it as history as the new Farm Bill passes, maybe in January.
Absolutely. We're knocking on wood and crossing fingers, right?
Exactly.
All this time it finally gets done.
Jonathan Kopis, Assistant Professor of Law and Policy at the University of Illinois, thank you so much, and we'll be talking to you soon. And here to talk about cash rents, crop estimates, and a defective chicken is Casey Berry.
It's not a flaw, it's a feature. Well, thanks, Fred, and I'm Casey Berry with this week's agricultural news. The last USDA supply and demand report came out this week, and just like the roller coaster ride that this growing season has been, there appears to be another dip in the amount of corn and soybeans people say was produced this year. The USDA numbers show that 2013 and 2014 ending stocks were almost 100 million bushels less for corn and 20 million bushels less for soybeans than were reported a month ago. Corn comes in at 1.8 billion bushels and 150 million bushels for soybeans, way up from last year's 825 million bushels of corn and 140 million bushels of beans. The USDA says the average farm price for corn is expected to range from $4.05 to $4.75 per bushel. Bean prices, though, have been raised, expected to range from $11.50 to $13.50. So commodity prices have dropped dramatically as supply and demand have leveled out. However, cash rents paid to produce crops like corn, soybeans, and wheat are still high. Todd Gleason has more on the potential income prospects for those acres rented at the highest levels.
The highest cash rents in the state of Illinois are considered to be on average about $75 more than the countywide average. That is reported by USDA. University of Illinois Extension Farm Management Specialist Gary Schnitke, he's done the numbers from one end of the state to the other to see what that extra $75 in land rent may mean to farmer profits in 2014.
We did it for 4 regions of Illinois: northern, central Illinois, and central Illinois, high and low productivity, and then southern Illinois. The results were pretty consistent throughout that. Average cash rents, there's marginal returns next year, $10 to $15 an acre at average cash rents. And when we get to higher cash rents, which according to our survey results are about $75 higher than the average cash rents, we see significant losses in the $50 to $100 an acre range.
The work varied the crop rotation by region of the state to come up with the numbers. The northern Illinois rotation is 2/3 corn and 1/3 soybean. That remains the same for highly productive soils in central Illinois, but is 50-50 for the lower productive acreage. The southern Illinois rotation is 1/3 corn, 1/3 soybean, and 1/3 wheat double crop soybeans. The rotations didn't make much of a difference.
Overall returns are lower in southern Illinois and for central Illinois low productivity land, but their cash rents are lower as well. So as you net those out, it comes out to be, in that $5, $10, $15 an acre farmer return at an average cash rent.
Schnitke's work on the impact of high cash rents on 2014 per acre net income is based on $4.60 cash corn and $11 soybeans. You can find the details on Illinois' FarmDoc Daily website. I'm University of Illinois Extension's Todd Gleason.
The USDA announced a couple of programs that are designed to help rural areas out. On Tuesday, Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack announced that the USDA has set a goal of investing up to $50 million to increase access to mental health care in rural areas over the next 3 years. The funding will be used for the construction, expansion, or equipping of rural mental health facilities and will be provided through the Community Facilities Direct Loan Program. The USDA also announced an overhaul of the single-family housing guaranteed loan program. This program will help make housing loans more available to residents in underserved communities. Among the changes are expanding the types of lenders who can participate in the program, including small community banks and credit unions, and would allow borrowers for the first time to choose home loan terms shorter than 30 years, leading to a significant cost savings for the borrowers who qualify. Well, this last story may be enough to ruffle your feathers. Check out this curly feathered rooster in China. Its owner has been raising chickens for years, but has never seen anything like this. Local animal officials say environmental factors may have played a role in giving his feathers the distinctive curl. Well, if I ever take a trip to China, I know to pack my flat iron. I have a hard enough time keeping my hair straight with the humidity in the Midwest. No tell in China. Well, how about you, Fred? Do you have a problem keeping your hair from curling?
I would tell you, but I'd have to find out where it all went first.
I think we should do a story on that. That'd be a good one.
Yeah, go get right on that, okay?
I'll go do that.
Okay, well, thanks, Casey. So last Sunday and Monday were very interesting to drive in, and forecasters tell us to expect more fun this Friday and Saturday. And while precipitation is welcome, it seems that we're in a very different weather pattern than we were this summer. Cameron Craig is all over this change in this week's Under the Four Rivers Skies.
Winter storms can be the most dangerous weather phenomenon for the simple fact that multiple variables pose a threat to many human activities. Frigid cold winds, blinding blizzards, slippery ice, and heavy snow all together can make life difficult and cause unnecessary loss of life if we fail to prepare for winter's wrath. Our region is unique in that it is geographically positioned in the battle zone of all sorts of weather hazards. Within a short period, we can experience rain changing over to ice, then snow, and gusty polar air, all within a single winter storm system. There are 3 different storm systems that can influence our winter weather, and each have their own hazardous conditions based on the moisture available and the speed of development. The Alberta Clipper is a fast-developing storm system that develops in Alberta, Canada. It takes a path through the Great Lakes region and then out to the Atlantic Ocean through the New England states. Because its track is positioned so far from the Gulf of Mexico, it does not have ample moisture to cause major snowstorms. However, what is a major factor of this system are the extremely gusty winds that it can provide as the storm deepens. Cold Canadian air masses are common with Alberta Clippers and can create harsh conditions for both humans and animals. The Colorado Low is a storm system that influences our region most often. It begins in Colorado and makes its way through the southern Great Lakes region and out through the New England states. Its speed of development is a little bit slower than the Alberta Clipper because of the increase in available moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. Depending on the position of the track, this storm system can bring us either heavy snow if the track is further to the south of us, or rain and ice if the track is further to the north. The last storm system is the Inside Leader, which develops in the Four Corners region of the southwest. The track of this storm heads across Texas toward the Gulf of Mexico, picking up ample moisture, and then cuts to the north along the eastern United States. Because the storm system has significant moisture associated with it, the speed of development is very slow and can dump several inches of snow. As these storm systems pass through our region, we must be prepared for what they provide. The most dangerous aspect of these storms is the possibility of ice or freezing rain. Freezing rain can coat every exposed object, adding weight to its structure. Trees and power lines are often under great strain when ice accumulates, causing power outages and damage to homes and automobiles. Roads can quickly become ice-covered and cause significant pileups. When freezing rain is in the forecast, keep it slow on the roadways, and always keep an eye on the road conditions. Long exposure to the harsh northerly winds can increase the possibility of frostbite that could result in the loss of fingers and toes. The best protection is to use common sense when the temperature drops and bundle up when venturing outdoors. Not only must we protect ourselves, but remember those that live outdoors. Domestic animals and livestock are susceptible to the winter elements when their primary food source is covered up by snow or ice and the water supply frozen from cold temperatures. When the winter season winds down and spring peaks around the corner with a significant warming, snowmelt can lead to major flooding along waterways and low-lying areas. Be aware of rising water and never try to cross fast-flowing water of any depth in your vehicle. When it comes to winter, the landscape may be beautiful and peaceful looking, but winter weather can be a deceptive killer. Be well prepared this winter before the ice, snow, and harsh cold air show their indiscriminate behavior.
This time of year makes you want to curl up with a good book and a fire in the fireplace, but before you strike that match, Dave Shiley is here to tell us what we need to think about before we throw another log on the fire. Dave,
Right.
What sort of things should we be thinking about this time of year?
Well, there's a couple things. One is fire safety. Before you get into the season, or if you haven't already, you need to have someone come and inspect the chimney, the flue. Make sure there isn't a creosote buildup.
Now, those creosote logs that supposedly take care of the creosote, do they work, or is that going to be enough?
Well, it's a good idea, but it's really not a substitute for having a professional come in, and that person is not only going to remove the creosote buildup if you have any, but also inspect your flue if you have a mason flue for cracks that might cause potential for a house fire, and we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, house fire and gas leak, those are deadly this time of year. So, okay, flue is clean, I'm ready to go, but I don't, where do I get the wood? What sort of wood should I be looking for?
Yeah, so you need to, when you're shopping for firewood, there are lots of vendors, local producers of firewood.
Drives with a truck.
Yeah, right, exactly. So a couple questions you want to ask that person, how long is it seasoned? That means that has it been sitting around and drying out? And we recommend that process to be at least 6 to 9 months. So that wood needs to be cut last year. The more moisture in the wood, the more smoke is going to be produced, and the more creosote potential buildup in your flue. Also, the moisture is going to steal some of the energy that is being produced, so it's going to produce less energy.
So a lot of neat
energy.
popping and cracking, but not a lot of heat and more smoke.
Right, right. So that's the first thing, is it seasoned? And then secondly, the volume you're buying. You want to be a wise consumer. A standard cord of wood is a stack of wood that's 4 feet by 4 feet by 8 feet. So, you know, are you buying a cord or are you buying a face cord? A face cord is just a stack of wood that is 4 by 8, and then the length of whatever that log is cut in. And which also reminds me, you want to make sure that you ask that vendor, how long are those logs that the firewood is cut into, so make sure it fits into your fireplace.
Okay, yeah, because it wouldn't do you any good if you have to fuss it in there.
Right.
Is some wood better than other for fires?
Well, any kind of hardwood. There are some species of trees that produce a higher BTU value, and such as black locust. But the oak and maple and ash are all going to produce similar BTU values. There's not a huge difference. Main thing is make sure it's a dry lumber. You can inspect the logs when it's delivered or before it's delivered. Look at the ends of the logs and look for cracks or checking. If you see those, then you know it has been seasoned.
It's been sitting there waiting for you, right?
Exactly.
Now, I've seen those fancy logs at gas stations, the type that are wrapped in, I won't mention the brand name, but you pretty much just set a match to it and are those okay to use?
Yeah, so there's two different kinds of things you might see at a place like that. One is a log that's wrapped up in paper, an individual log, and usually use those as a fire starter, and those are fine. And then the firewood that's available at vendors like that, that's already packaged, that has been heat treated or fumigated or kiln dried to meet the requirements to prevent emerald ash borer movement. The larvae and the pupas are going to be underneath the bark in the phloem, or the inner bark of the tree. And so during the winter time, then we move it from one place to another, or even during the summer, spring, we're transporting that insect further. So it's not harmful to burn, but and in fact, a lot of communities are looking at ways to utilize these ash trees that are being killed by emerald ash borer, and that one was firewood production, but also taking that log and removing the outside bark and 1 inch of sapwood, and then the log is safe to transport in terms of not moving emerald ash borer and utilizing that lumber rather than just throwing it into a landfill.
Okay, so the wood is good, but don't move it from county to county or area to area because you're transporting the larvae.
Right, and if people want to learn more about that, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has indicated that Illinois has a separate quarantine, a federal quarantine, so they can check the Illinois Department of Agriculture's website. It'll describe the federal quarantine. In other words, it's illegal for you to move any kind of ash tree, living or dead, or any part of, or hardwood lumber or firewood out of Illinois. And then we have an internal quarantine that again, there are some additional restrictions.
So. Thanks so much, and hopefully we'll stay warm and toasty.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jessica Killow with your Inside Extension. Do you have an interest in gardening? Want to learn more about gardening, fruit trees, and how to manage insect pests? If you answered yes to these questions and want to share your knowledge with others, then you may be interested in becoming a Master Gardener. The deadline to sign up for Master Gardener training is December 20th. For more information, visit our website or call the Coles County Extension Office at 217-345-7034. Cold, dreary days can lead to the winter blahs, but this dreaded condition can be minimized or even avoided altogether. Don't get stuck in a gloomy mood waiting for spring to come. Visit our website for tips on avoiding the winter blues. This year's University of Illinois Herb Day will be on Saturday, January 18th from 8 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. at the Holiday Inn Hotel and Conference Center in Urbana. 3 guest speakers will be there, as well as a retail area selling a wide variety of herb, spice, and gardening product. Registration is required. Visit our website to learn more about the guest speakers and the Herb Fest. From U of I Extension serving Coles, Cumberland, Douglas, Moultrie, and Shelby counties, this has been your Inside Extension.
Well, that's it for this week. But before we go, I'd like to take a minute to mention that WEIU is wrapping up our December pledge period. We're doing it because we have to. WEIU is a community-based, non-commercial station. We air and create programs that are important to the people who live in the area our signal covers. And we're prohibited by law to run commercials. If not, this program would be wall-to-wall with seed and tractor and herbicide commercials, or it wouldn't be on the air at all. You see, farmers, while economically critical to this area, are few and far between, and it's easier and more profitable for a station to run infomercials or shows that are aimed at a larger, less demanding audience. The takeaway from all this, please contribute to the station whatever you feel comfortable with. It's easy to donate online or call the station during business hours at 847-727-9348. I know farmers, that's toll free. And ask for Chena. She's a sweetheart and she'll help you out. WEIU really needs your help and support. And for that, we thank you. So work hard, be safe, and enjoy the beautiful sunsets. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report. The Four Rivers Ag Report is underwritten in part by
The Department of Geology-Geography is a proud sponsor of the Four Rivers Ag Report and provides integrative learning opportunities for students and the community to explore the physical and cultural world near and far.